Hey everyone, Pastor Nathan here. We're continuing to talk about praying the Psalms together. I have found the Psalms as a guide to prayer to be incredibly valuable during this season, the season of stress, of challenge, of new, not necessarily wanted new, and not all good new. So last week we talked about praying a fairly easy psalm, Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And we walked through what it looked like to pray that psalm. This week we're talking about Psalm 13. Psalm 13 is a little bit different psalm. If you have read through it, or if you haven't read through it, you can just pause the video now and read through Psalm 13, because I'm just going to highlight a couple of key things about Psalm 13 as you use it perhaps as a guide for your prayer life. Mostly I'm going to focus on verse 2. Verse 1, David writes, "How long, Lord, will you forget me? How long will you hide your face from me?" He is in a bad place at this point in his life, whatever is happening. And we know this because of the next verse, verse 2. "How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me?" So in Psalm 13 verse 2, we get there's two kind of key words in this section that would perhaps guide our own prayer life. The first is wrestle with my thoughts. The idea is almost like the soul is revolting. Like there's this conflict, inner warfare going on with David. And then the second thing is day after day have sorrow in my heart. The sorrow's that's a kind of weak translation of the Hebrew word. The Hebrew word is more like grief and agony. This idea of how long must I have warfare going on in my inner life, my thoughts, my emotions, my whatever's going on inside. How long do I have to deal with agony that's going on in my heart? How long will my enemy have triumph over me? And in this kind of scenario, the enemy is what could be many things. The enemy could be an external force causing all of this issue going on. Maybe you get conflict at work or conflict at home, conflict with relatives, conflict with friends. That can be that kind of thing going on where it's an external issue that is causing the conflict going on inside of you. The other kind of place enemy might be is internal. And that could be something perhaps mental, emotional, physical, just causing you to struggle with something. Or it could just be, your own expectations of yourself and your expectations of how you're going to deal with the situation and your own struggle with perhaps a decision or whatever that's upcoming. Those are all things. And I do have to, that David could be talking about. And I do have to kind of put a caveat here on this, that the Lord's answer to this is it could be many different things. But if you're struggling with something, and this is a long-term struggle, like you've been struggling with this not for days or weeks, but maybe for months, you've been wrestling with an agony or a sorrow, and this is that there's kind of spiritual, psychological conflict going on in your life, the Lord's answer to this prayer may be a counselor, may be getting counseling so that you can overcome this with His provided help through another person who is specifically trained to do that kind of stuff. So that's just a heads up on one way the Lord might answer this. But to go back to this, Andrew Peterson, as a Christian songwriter, writes this about this kind of situation. How does it end when the war that you're in is just you against you against you? And that's often what internal conflict feels like. It's just us against ourselves. And so we need the Lord to step in and to help, get us out of that. And that's David's prayer. He says, "Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes." He said, "Restore joy to me." And that's our prayer. It's like, Lord, intervene, whether that's, showing us that we need external help or coming to us through your word and providing us the comfort and rest that only you can provide. And the reason for this is we don't want our enemy, whether that's our own sinful nature or Satan or the world, to have the victory. We ultimately want Christ to have the victory in our lives. And that's David's prayer here. He says, "And lest my enemies say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall." The idea that we don't want the three-headed beast to have victory. The brokenness of this world, our own sinful nature, or Satan to ultimately rule in our hearts and minds. We want God to do that, and we want him to provide the solution one way or another. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. And this is David's ultimate kind of ending, and that's where we are too. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. David knows, like, the Lord's going to provide the solution to this internal conflict. That even though he seems to have turned away from me, ultimately he's going to be there and comfort and restore me some way, shape, or form. And so that's our prayer as we're praying through Psalm 13, that, like, Lord, I want to sing your praises and to see your goodness to me. Verse 6. Anyhow, I hope that's helpful for you. A little more difficult of a psalm to pray through, but still a great way to sort of frame our prayer life during the day, and to let the Lord, and to seek the Lord's face, and let the Lord, kind of have the last word in what we're doing and how we're going about our day, and waiting for his salvation. So anyhow, hope that's helpful for you. We'll talk again soon.